Yeah. Wake up with coffee and sports. Sunrise glow, listen coast to coast. A flow like you know.
Offensively, who made them? Oh, Patrick Mahomes.
Sideline to sideline with plays to show. This network's got the spark.
When you put up 300 yards rushing against someone, that you got your butt whooped.
I feel like I would have liked to see Oregon Ohio State in the semis, not the quarters. So I think some reseeding is probably where I would change. But
they're out of their mind. They're going to do this 3 quarterbacks in a row.
Here's the crazy.
I just can't take it.
First deep flying high, fast cheering loud, and one podcast moving through the crowd. Meaty boys brawling, no holds barred loud. This wire life never in doubt. Tune into the vibe.
That's my bold prediction for the show. Devin Booker, in the next 3 years, he will be a Houston Rocket.
Because I still think Seth is still at the top of his game. I do. I think he's right there. Who knows? Maybe. Not this year, but one time soon. Why wouldn't we potentially see Seth and Roman? You know what I mean?
Tune in the vibe. Morning reps, good centers. Gardi on the mic, now let's spill the tea. Talking courtside dreams from history. Legends on the blacktop now and then. From Will to Steph, we hit it again. Mo better chimes in, let's go deep. Young blood's rising, can't skip a beat. Lovely prospects with fire in their eyes. Draft night suckers and hoop dream high. Wire to wire, bring the heat. Podcast magic can't be beat. Do better, we're more better. We're hoop heads, trendsetters.
What's poppin', y'all? It is your boy, Gardi3, and welcome to the And One podcast. Now, of course, joining me just like every week, he is the greatest co-host of all time. He is Mo Better. How you doing, Mo?
Hey, what's good, Brett? What's good, chat? Let's talk some hoops.
Alrighty. By the way, if you need your update on the Thursday night football game, Josh Jacobs touchdown, 14-0 Packers. But enough football talk. Let's go to our underrated player of the week. For anybody just tuning in, Mo and I like to shine love on a team, player, executive. Could be anybody who we think needs a little bit more of the spotlight. So, Mo, who's your underrated player of the week this week?
You know what? I think my underrated player of the week this week, I'm going to go with a guy that he kind of gets lost in time, but he was a really good basketball player. He might be underappreciated at times for what he did. I'm going to go with Horace Grant. Horace Grant, who's a 3-time champion. He made an all-star team, made multiple all-defensive teams. I think what people forget about Horace Grant was he was kind of ahead of his time. He was built like a small forward, but he played a game like a power forward. And he was one of the first bigs that I saw who could show, recover, and play in space defensively. Like Horace Grant is a good one-on-one defender, but he's an elite team defender. And you could book him for like 14 and 10, like just Mr. Consistency. He was a key piece in the three-peat Bulls, the first three-peat Bulls. And you and I talked about this. He's one of the main reasons why we think the first three-peat Bulls is better than the second three-peat Bulls. So I want to give Horace Grant his flowers.
Hey, you know what? I'm always down to talk some Horace Grant. It's one of the biggest reasons they got Rodman. Say they faced the Magic. Obviously, they had lost Horace Grant in free agency to Orlando. Then they faced Orlando, and then they realized that they needed a Horace Grant replacement. They needed somebody that could do the dirty work at power forward. So I always love the Horace Grant shout out. You know, I'm going to go with. So Mo, I'm going to mention somebody we've talked about before because I'm going to double give him his flowers, and I want to congratulate him because, as we know, one of the Hall of Fame inductees was the Redeem Team.
Yes.
Which means one of my favorite Milwaukee Bucks of all time is officially a Hall of Famer. I'm talking about Michael Redd.
Knew it.
He got inducted. He was part of the Redeem Team. So Michael Redd is officially in the NBA Hall of Fame. I couldn't be happier. The original 22. Say, before it was Chris Middleton, it was my guy Michael Redd. So I just wanted to shout out and congratulate Michael Redd for making the Hall of Fame. So I love to see that. I love to see the honor, him receive that honor. He deserves it.
He does deserve it. Shout out to the Redeem Team. I remember following them. We watched every game. Them bringing home the gold, reestablishing us as the power in basketball. I love everything about that team. And I think it's great that a guy like Michael Redd, who was a terrific basketball player, maybe not quite a Hall of Fame career, but he finds his way in the Hall of Fame because he earned it being a member of the Redeem Team. So I love that.
Yeah, that made me and it just showed how good he was, right? When it came to actually, because they're not just picking anybody to be on the Redeem Team.
Right.
If you get on it, there was a reason. And the fact that, he was selected to be on that team, I'm just really happy for him. He's a great guy. He's a great ambassador for the game, too. If you've seen him on Twitter, nothing but positive and trying to push the game forward. So I absolutely love, him getting in. So congratulations to Michael Redd.
Yeah, congrats. One of the quickest releases I've ever seen.
Oh, absolutely. He was one of my favorites, especially to use in like 2K for that reason, just how quick his release was, because you could get your shot off at any time with him. So, Mo, I wanted to bring back a segment. We haven't done it in a while, and I want to bring it back. Do better with Mo better. Because the most absurd thing happened, and I don't know if everybody caught this, but it was quite the talking point, and I thought it was ridiculous. So Angel Reese went out and she said a lot of the quiet stuff that we've been saying about this guy out loud, about the need to improve guard play, talking about it was just a great interview to watch. So the Skies see all of this happening, by the way. And you know what their response is? Angel Reese, you are suspended for half a game. Not a full game. You are suspended for the first 2 quarters. And don't worry, quarters 3 and 4, she had a back injury and she was ruled out. And I've never seen that before. I've never seen anybody get suspended for 2 quarters. And I love how they specified it. Like, I don't get it. If you're going to suspend her, go all the way. Yeah, you're suspended for a game. You're suspended for the rest of the season. There's only 2 games left anyway.
Right.
Like, go all in. I think things like this just show how poorly run the Chicago Sky are. Like, if you're going to discipline your player, don't half-arse it like you did. Like, Mo, I just don't get it. That was just mind-boggling to me.
As a fan, I found it frustrating and stupid. Could she have worded her feelings about the way the roster construction was in a different way? She could have. But I want to remind people that she's in her second year. She's in her second year, and normally you have a vet to turn to, but she's in her second year on a team where she's kind of been thrust into a leadership role. And maybe she didn't do it perfectly, but she was having an honest moment. And like I said, she could have articulated herself in a different way. But for the organization to respond the way they did, I think they felt like they had to, and they really didn't have to. You know what I mean? Like, you could have had a private conversation with her, and that would have been the end of it. The dumb half suspension didn't make sense to me. Look, I'm of the opinion that organizations, the good or the bad, it starts with the top of the organization, ownership, president, general manager. That's the start of it. The Sky are not a well-run organization because they lack leadership at the top. And that's sad because Angel Reese has to deal with that.
And that's the frustrating part. Like, I want this guy to succeed. I want to see Angel Reese succeed. I want to see that entire organization succeed. The problem is they don't seem to want to say. I agree with you. She could have worded it better. Pretty much the only teammate she technically called out was Courtney Vandersloot, but what she said about her was we can't rely on her to come back at her age, even though she did make sure to say that she does say that she'll be a positive asset. And that's an accurate assumption. Courtney Vandersloot is coming off an ACL injury at age 37. Like,
correct.
You really can't rely on her to come back and play at a really high level at that point. So, yeah, I hope the Chicago Sky figure it out, but man, their leadership team, their leaders at the top, they just got to get it together this offseason.
I agree. They got a lot of work to do. And look, and maybe that's what it is. The same way that young players have growing pains, maybe this organization is going through its growing pains. You just hope for the health of the league they get it together. Like, I look at a team like the Valkyrie in their inaugural season doing what they've done. And that's amazing and great for the league. And then you look at the Sky and you're just a little bit frustrated because they just haven't really put in the work.
I feel like they're a lesson too as to why you need veterans on your teams, right? That's a really young team, a lot of young players. It just leadership all over the board. They need it. So, like I said, I'm rooting for them, and I hope they figure it out. In some other NBA news, Mo, you've seen all the stuff that's going on with the Clippers, right?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, apparently the Clippers are promising getting Kawhi outside endorsements to pay him more money, and people are complaining, about that, obviously circumventing the salary cap and getting around it. And the funny part is, too, the fact that the report that came out today that apparently the company that they were supposed to, getting this money from, Aspiration, was late to make a $1.75 million payment, and Uncle Dennis threw a fit, called the Clippers owner, who a couple days later invested $2 million into the company, and then, Boardman got paid. So, I just find it funny that Uncle Dennis is moving like Suge Knight over $2 million when Kawhi's like worth $200 million. But what do you think about this whole like Clippers and Kawhi Leonard mess?
Well, it is very similar to the Joe Smith situation years ago with Minnesota. It's not the same exact thing, but I do think if they're found guilty of what's been laid out, they should face the same type of punishment that the Timberwolves faced. I don't know, a lot of people won't remember this, but they did something really shysty with Joe Smith's contract on a deal, and Kevin McHale was suspended for a year. I believe they lost like 5 or 6 drafts. I mean, they really dropped the hammer on Minnesota, set them back for probably a decade. I think if the Clippers are guilty of these things, they should face a similar punishment. And I want to point this out because a lot of people are saying, oh, Kawhi is getting over, or there's no one who's involved in this. If the Clippers are guilty of this, that has clean hands. So what I'm saying is, if you don't like the idea that they were paying Kawhi basically for breathing, yeah, I get that. But that deal doesn't happen without Steve Ballmer's knowledge. And I know Steve Ballmer's playing the man. I was fooled. They tricked me. They tricked me, as smart as I am. So I'm innocent because I'm just not as smart as people think I am. I'm not going for that. I'm not going for that at all. If they're guilty of it, he was involved as well. It's as simple as that. But I don't think anybody has clean hands. Not Ballmer, not Kawhi, certainly not Uncle Dennis. And it's just a bad look on the league in terms of integrity because you are circumventing the salary cap and finding another way to pay your best player on the sly. And it's not right. And you should face a stiff penalty for that.
I completely agree. You just cannot, because then that just sets a bad precedent for the future, because there are some teams that just don't have the sponsorship and these other opportunities that some of these other teams have. That would give teams like New York and LA a massive advantage due to the extra sponsorship opportunities and everything that are there. So I'm excited to see, and I'm curious because they're able to take picks away from the Timberwolves for the Joe Smith situation. But I'm curious how that would work with the Clippers because they don't really have any firsts. It's all like pick swaps and a really distant first. So
yeah, they've given away all their. I was getting ready. You bring up a great point, partner. They've given away a lot of their future draft picks. So is the NBA going to be able to like kind of retro penalize them and go, we're taking away your picks in 20, 35, 6, and 7. You know what I mean? Like when is it going to actually be able to hit? Because they don't have any picks.
that was my thought. Like, can you really take away their half of a pick swap? Because I don't know if like that's really the best that they could do unless they're really going far out into the future. And that would be brutal too if you're able to take away pick swaps or anything in the for the Clippers, because they need the young talent. They need the influx of young talent probably more than any team in the league.
Especially now. If you look at the roster that they put together this offseason, they put together a who's who of who you wanted on your team 5 years ago. But right now, today, they're just a team of angry old men. And don't get me wrong, it would make for a great story if the oldest team in the NBA could go on an incredible run and end up in the finals. I just don't think that's going to happen. And you do have to think about your future. What is your future beyond James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, and guys like that? The Clippers are thin, and they don't have any picks. And let me tell you this, one more point on this. All these people talking about where they're going to go back and undo the SGA trade. No, they're not. No, they're not. That I can tell. I don't know what's going to happen, but I can tell you what's not going to happen. They're not going to redo that. That's some kind of fever fantasy that's not going to happen.
Can they take away exceptions to restrict free agency options? So there's apparently some executives that want to see either multiple firsts get taken away from the Clippers, which we discussed there. Unless they're going well into the 2030s, that's kind of hard to do. This other option, though, Mo, is the most interesting one to me. Or Leonard's contract is voided while still counting towards the team's salary cap.
You mean so if it's voided and it counts toward the salary cap, does that mean that he's a free agent?
Yeah. So pretty much they're like void his contract, so he's not with the Clippers anymore. But you still have to, it's still going to count towards the salary cap.
I actually look as a fan, I kind of like that one.
Honestly, I do too. That's the thing. If this is true and this turns out to be all proven, like something has to happen. Otherwise, guess what? Every team in the league is now going to start taking shell companies to pay these free agents.
This is true.
You're going to get, Miami signing KD next year in free agency. Oh, look at that. KD's getting an extra $25 million from KD8, the LLC. Like, you don't want to set this precedent that teams can just go around the salary cap like this. So
I agree.
I absolutely would love it if they got a little creative with the Clippers if they're not going to touch their picks.
I really think that solution is the fairest and the best solution because, one, it actually helps Steve Ballmer out too, because Steve Ballmer, he needs some good PR. Well, the good PR would be the assumption is that Steve Ballmer somehow has clean hands, and he's right. He just got duped, and he didn't know Kawhi was making all kind of insane amount of money for doing nothing. And by getting rid of Kawhi, I guess it would be a good PR for their fans to some degree. I would say, though, in the bigger picture of the NBA, Kawhi Leonard being a free agent, even at this stage in his career, it's very it would make for an interesting where would he land.
Yeah, and I think he could still be an impact player in a more limited role. Obviously, you wouldn't want him to be playing big minutes anymore. but he showed like he still played like a lot of the games last year in the second half of the year for a good amount of minutes. So if you're a team that picks him up, I would say sign him, rest him throughout the year so he can play those bigger minutes in the playoffs. So he would still be an impact free agent, and I would be looking forward to that.
Here's the drama. I like Kawhi with Golden State, and I like Kawhi with the Timberwolves. I like Kawhi. I'm going to put it out there. I don't know if he'd be interested. I like Kawhi in a lesser role on your Bucks.
I would like that too. I would love it. The challenge is if he hit free agency, I don't think he'd be willing to take a huge discount, I guess. So I guess who would be willing to make the moves to sign him?
I would say this too. This works twofold. Yeah, I normally you would say he's not going to take a huge discount, but I think Kawhi could use some positive PR too. And let's be honest, like you said, Kawhi Leonard has made $200 to $300 million in his NBA career. He's not hurting for money, and clearly he was making a little on the side. So he would do himself a service by asking for like the veterans minimum or even the mid-level to give himself some PR to where it appears he's more interested in winning than getting paid.
My favorite creative punishment was by the fans as a joke. They're like, the punishment should be they're forced to retrade and reacquire Paul George. Like, that might be cruel and unusual punishment at this point.
That's pretty brutal. Yeah, that's rough. I do like that idea though. That he gets waived, but it counts against their cap. That's a brutal punishment in itself. That's like an anchor around your franchise's neck in terms of salary cap. So I like that.
And of course, speaking of free agency, we finally had a restricted free agent off the board, Mo.
It took forever, but yeah.
Josh Giddey, 4 years. I think it would say 4 years, $110 million. He finally got paid. So, what are your thoughts on that, Mo? We figured he would be coming back to the Bulls. The only question was, is a deal going to be made, or is it going to be a qualifying offer? And we finally got our answer.
Let me start with the easy part. I'm a Josh Giddey fan. I think he's a really good basketball player. And in any addition that he is to any team, that team is better. My only drawback is the 110 doesn't sound like an earth-shattering contract. But if it's a Chicago franchise that's been dormant for the last few years, and it's a franchise, they don't have a legitimate number one option. They don't have a legitimate number two option. I like Josh Giddey a lot. I'm going to say that again. But at best, let's agree, at best, as good as he is, he's your third option. He's your third guy, right? So I like that they're bringing him back to kind of solidify the roster, but he can't be the face of your franchise. He's not that guy. I don't know if he has another level to where he could be the second guy, but I know for sure he's not the guy. So I like them bringing him back, but I still think they're a franchise in disarray because you're still missing the guy. I don't understand what you're going to do. You bringing back Kobe White, who's a good player, but Kobe White is a good player the same way Lou Williams was, the same way Jamal Crawford was. He's a bucket getter, but he's not a franchise bucket getter. So I still think Chicago is in disarray. And I don't think you help yourself by bringing Billy Donovan back. So I get why you kept Josh Giddey. I just don't understand the direction of the franchise.
Billy Donovan had those couple good years with KD and Russ on the Thunder and has somehow gotten by ever since. It is a miracle. Everywhere he goes, they all suck. He hasn't been a good coach in years, it feels like. But everywhere really likes him. He's a very personable coach, I guess. He gets along with the players, it seems. So he's got that going for him. And just when it comes to the X's and O's, it's just Chicago is so uncreative and uninspiring under him.
He must be a great salesman. He must really sell himself well in an interview. All I know is this. Those Thunder teams that he coached, you and I could have sat on the bench playing video games and we would have won 50 games. I don't think Billy Donovan is a great NBA coach. I think he was very successful in college. But let's not forget, go look at those Florida teams. They were stacked times 10. So again, I don't know how great a coach he is. So far, he doesn't appear to be the kind of coach that can build a team from the ground up and win.
No, I completely agree with that. The Bulls, they got Giddy back. Giddy's interesting too because he still isn't that great at playing off the ball. So he's like a number 3 option that still needs to be the primary ball handler for max value. It's a very interesting conundrum. Call it the Ricky Rubio conundrum.
Oh, I like that comparison.
Because, like, Ricky Rubio had the same problem where you're like, yeah, this guy shouldn't be your primary option, but at the same time, he's just so, like, ineffective without the ball that you're just like, oh, we're putting it in his hands because otherwise it doesn't really work. So, like I said, Giddy's interesting, and I like that the Bulls paid him because they have to spend the money anyway. You might as well pay your own guy. But, yeah, I don't think he's going to push them anywhere, out anywhere near a championship or even like a first round exit anytime soon. I still think this is the same play-in team we've been seeing for years.
I agree. And I want to point out again, I'm not anti Josh Giddey. I just think that there's a limit to where he can take you as a player. He's a very good player, but unless he's going to improve his perimeter shooting, to your point, without the ball in his hand, he's an ineffective player because he's not a terrific shooter. He's not a great catch and shoot guy. He's got to become a better shooter or be more aggressive off the dribble and attack the basket more and get to the foul line. But he's got to be a better version of what he's been to this point in his career.
Not absolutely. And of course, by the way, I made this joke earlier, but that's just because I seen the report. If the Rockets and KD can't come to an agreement, apparently Miami has their sights set on KD. Every time. Dude, I don't Mo, what's Miami's end game? Like to get progressively older every year while just not being real contenders?
What happened to Miami? When did they become like Miami has become like the Knicks in like the early 2000s where they get everybody that you can remember when they were once good, but they're washed up. Like, I'm not saying KD's washed up, but now you're talking about he's 37 now. So now Miami is like, we want to throw a bucket of money at a 38-year-old because he'll be 38. What do you think's going to happen with a 38-year-old? Y'all not winning no titles. If you bring Kevin Durant to Miami, even if you could keep Tyler Hero and Bam, you ain't winning no titles. I don't understand the thinking. I've always been a big fan and advocate for Pat Riley. But if Pat Riley really signs off on bringing a 38-year-old into town as a savior, it's time for Pat Riley to retire.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, like you said, I'm a big fan of Durant. I think the hate that he gets is too much. Especially, like, I feel like we're at the point in his career where it's almost like he's hated more for what he does online than the actual basketball court.
That's true.
Because what he does on the actual basketball court is still give you an efficient 25 a game. Like, he's still an insane basketball player. So that means...
No, I just want to throw out, incredibly efficient. I agree with everything you said. Do I think he can carry the Rockets to the... Because ultimately, it's about what he does with Houston. And everybody's got Houston as a front runner to win the West. I honestly don't understand that because I think the defending champions are better. I think the Nuggets are better. The only way the Rockets make a title run, it's not because you get an efficient Kevin Durant season, another 26 points, 7 rebounds, shoot 50% or whatever. That's not going to be the reason. The reason the Rockets go to the finals will be because Amen Thompson has taken another leap in his development, and he becomes that much better. If he becomes that much better, then they go to the finals.
I was praying that you were going to say that. I think the key is with KD is, and I think this is almost the superpower of KD, and he can do this seamlessly. With the Rockets, I think they just got to, at the end of the day, make sure to play like KD is part of the team and don't necessarily run your offense through KD. KD's a great talent. He should be a big part of the offense, but don't stop and make it a KD centric like ISO offense. Kevin Durant, his superpower is just his versatility to fit into any kind of offense, and I think his ability to ISO in one-on-one situations and efficiently get you a bucket will be a big boon. We saw the problem last year with their offense was when they needed a one-on-one bucket, they had to go to Jalen Green, who could not get them an efficient bucket, and I think KD helps him a ton in that regard. But just make sure you're including everybody else in the offense, and I think KD himself would agree, and I think KD said he's going to be a big part of this Rocket success as long as they make sure to just not fixate on the shiny new toy they just got and make sure to keep everybody involved. I think this Rockets team is going to be real good as long as KD and everybody just continue to play team basketball.
So I'm kind of where Kyle is. It's how people said, look at KD and Phoenix. Oh my God, the Suns are going to be beasts. I would go further back than that. They said that about the Nets too. And so while you can look at the numbers, his numbers are the shiny toys. But if you look at the actual results of both those franchises, he didn't win. He didn't win anything. He actually got progressively worse. So he's efficient. I won't argue that. But I don't think he's as dominant as people think he is. Like, he's actually gotten to the point where he's overrated. He doesn't impact winning the way he did when he was in his prime. What he does is he does something that another guy does. He gets his numbers, but it's not impacting winning. So I find it odd that in a league that stresses the youth and athleticism of a lot of its stars, it doesn't say a lot about your league when your league is still dominated by three guys that are over 35 years old. That's if anything, it's kind of a bad look. How can you allow somebody that's 35, another guy that's 37, another guy that's 40? I think Harden's 36. Like, something's wrong with the rest of the league if they can still dominate you close to 40.
No, absolutely. So, say the challenge, the thing with KD with the Suns is the initial trade. I will say the same thing I did when the trade initially happened. I didn't mind the initial trade. It's them botching every single follow-up move after the initial trade that was hilarious to me. Like, okay, as long as because Devin Booker and Kevin Durant were great together. They were a great duo, and you're just going into that offseason. I remember just being like, as long as they round out the roster just right, this Suns team could be really good. And then they decided that Nurk and Beal were rounding out the roster just right. And at that point, you're just like, well, they're getting knocked out in the first round if they're lucky.
My problem was with the trade initially, because it seemed it's like if you got 20/20 vision, it was right there. They said, we need to add a bigger name to Book. They made a panic move. And then when they got Durant and they were losing and they weren't very good and they couldn't guard anybody, they were like, Book needs to be flanked by wing players that can defend at a high level, but that can score as well. Well, you had that. You had that with Cam Johnson, and you had that with Bridges. That's how you got to the finals, because you had guys like that. When you bring in a Durant, I give him all the credit in the world for still playing at a high level into his mid-30s, but you know where he doesn't play at a high level at? He doesn't play defense. I keep hearing all these people talk about how great a defender he is. I'm going to give him credit for how he played defense in his time with Golden State, because I thought with the Warriors, Kevin Durant had a case to make at least second NBA All-NBA defense a couple of times. He was that good a team defender. But as an individual defender, as a guy out on the island guarding another wing player, he's not a good defender. He doesn't have the lateral quickness to stay with anybody. He's not quick enough to stay with anybody. They have to stop that. Everything that he does good for you offensively, he returns it on the other end of the floor. So I don't understand how they could blow that franchise up the way they did, but they did. They literally gave away everything that helped Booker be as successful as he was. And the Rockets, I totally understand the Rockets move. You just pointed out, yes, Jalen Green, vastly overrated and not a great finisher. definitely not an efficient basketball player. Kevin Durant at any age is an upgrade over that. But even if he's an upgrade, when you get in the postseason and it becomes more of a grind and it becomes more about half-court execution, I don't know how good the Rockets are going to be. That's why I said I know KD's numbers will be there. But if the Rockets are going to take this huge leap forward, Thompson's got to be better. Şengün's got to be better. If they're not, you're going to end up looking like the Suns or the Nets.
I will say, Mo, when it comes to KD's defense, I think you're going to get a better defensive KD this year. I think the biggest problem with KD defensively with Phoenix is he was their best wing defender in Phoenix. Unless you're a massive, like, Royce O'Neal fan who didn't really play all that much, you can make a legitimate argument that KD was their best wing defender, him or Royce. And I think that's kind of the problem. When you put him on Houston and you do have guys like, Amen Thompson who can defend, you have Şengün whose defense looked vastly improved, and all of a sudden, you don't task KD with trying to be one of your best wing defenders and your best offensive player. I think we're going to get a better KD this year defensively. I'm willing to bet money on that. I think it was more a Suns team construction problem than an actual problem with KD's defense himself.
Well, I'm not talking about his that he can't play defense, but I'm saying as an individual defender, he's not quick enough. He doesn't have the lateral quickness to guard somebody with a live handle. You're not going to put Kevin Durant on Anthony Edwards, smoked. On Luka, who's slow as dirt, smoked. He's not a good individual defender at this point in his career. And so if he really was the Suns' best wing defender, that explains why everybody was scoring on them, because they couldn't get stops. Of course he'll look better this year. You know why he'll look better? Because Houston has 3 or 4 guys that are high-level defenders. So is that him looking better, or is that them covering for him?
I say a little bit of both. I think that'll be the key to KD this year. I think you can cover for him a lot better, which in turn will end up making him a better, kind of making him look a lot better. I think it still has value as a weak side rim protector.
I think he'll be a great weak side defender. I agree.
I do agree in the sense you don't necessarily want to put him on the best guy with a live handle on the other team. If he was guarding the 2016 Thunder, he'd be the guy you'd throw on Roberson to conserve on for offense.
And look, to be fair, this isn't bang on KD day. If the Warriors were playing that version of the Thunder, that's the guy you would put Steph on too.
Oh, absolutely. Let's say, like I said, you'll find. Do love me some KD. So speaking of, by the way, Mo, before we get to this next portion, I do want to say I love the content you're putting out on TikTok. So if you're not following Mo on TikTok, make sure to check it out because he puts out some really fun hypothetical questions. I did find the ones interesting, with Shaq and the Magic beating the Rocket, or Duncan losing to the Pistons. Which one would be more of a change in NBA history? I did think that was a great question,
and they're fun because somebody responded and said, so what you're basically saying is, would Shaq have stayed with the Magic longer? No, that's part of it. Certainly, they would have won a title, which means they would have went into the next season as champions, and they would have had the confidence of a champion. They would have been different. You know what I mean? They would have been different. And then you have to factor in the ripple down effect. I don't think Shaq even thinks about leaving Orlando. I don't think so. He would have already won a title, probably a Finals MVP. So what happens in '96? It doesn't happen. He doesn't become a Laker. I think there's that kind of ripple effect. The same way, if the Pistons, we're talking about Billups, Sheed, and Big Ben Wallace, they win Game 7 and they beat the Spurs, then suddenly they're back-to-back champions. The whole perception of them is completely changed. And it's weird because as great as Tim Duncan is, he could lose a title. He could lose one of those titles. I don't think it would change the way you or I see him, right? You know what I'm saying? in comparison, when we talk about how great a player he is or how great a power forward he is, I don't think that changes anything for Timmy. The only thing it would have changed is I think it would have had a greater ripple effect for the Pistons.
No, I'd say the Pistons are absolutely viewed as probably an all-time great team going back-to-back in the 2000s. Timmy still probably ends up with 4 because, yeah, I still beat the Cavs in 07. I have no doubt they make it back there.
You know what? You just gave me another question that I'm going to have to throw out the TikTok because it is another ripple effect. Or Timmy could have ended up with 5 if Ray Allen doesn't make that jump shot.
Hey, you know what, though? The thing with the Spurs is maybe Timmy just wins it in 06 instead, because the thing with the Spurs is, man, when they, started playing with, vengeance after they, lost or just came up short, that's when they were the most dangerous, it felt like. They win a title in 03, they fall short in 04. What do? They come back, play angry and inspired, and win in 05. Fall short in 06, what do? They play angry and inspired, and they win it in 07.
Facts.
Say they lose in 13, and they use that as motivation to blow everybody out in 14. Not everybody, actually. Never forget, the Memphis Grizzlies almost knocked them out in the first round.
That was their toughest challenge all postseason.
I remember people counting out the Spurs because the Grizzlies almost knocked them out, and then they just absolutely dog-walked everybody else. Say the Grizzlies just happened to be matched up perfectly to face the Spurs, and nobody else was really well-equipped to handle that barrage.
No. Yeah, I think the Grizzlies, their physicality on both ends of the floor, they controlled the pace of that series, and they just made it a grind. To the Spurs' credit, they're able to adjust and play multiple styles of basketball. They can play the slow walk-it-up game, or they can speed it up and bomb you from 3.
No, that's fair enough. So, Mo, you asked an interesting question, and I thought we'd just bring it right onto the show. If every player in the league was in their prime, what would the top 10 look like? And this becomes insanely hard at that point, right?
It does.
Because now all of a sudden you're bringing back prime LeBron, KD, prime Steph. And now it's just wait a minute, hold up. How do we even, how do you even pick? And the funny part is the back half of that question is tougher than the front half. I feel like the first 3 are actually rather simple to me.
I agree. I think that's the easy part. I think beyond the first 3, that's when the conversation and debate starts.
So I think the best player, if everybody's in their prime right now in the NBA, I think number 1 is LeBron James.
Agree with you 100%. I got LeBron number 1.
I think number 2. Now, I think number 2 and 3 are interesting because I think number 2 is Steph and number 3 is Nikola Jokic.
I'm in lockstep. We're in lockstep. I know some people would say I would put Joker ahead of Steph. You're thinking about Joker in terms of how he fills out a stat sheet, and he's amazing. I'm thinking about Steph. We're talking about prime Steph and what he did to defense. He still does it now, but what he was in his prime and the peak of his powers, he flipped the league around. So I got to put Steph ahead of Joker.
That's fair. And you know what? The beauty of this is you can make your own list too. So I'd love to see anybody's list down in the comment. But I honestly 2 and 3 you can flip flop them if you want.
Fair.
It's just so tough for me to overlook the fact that with Steph as the engine of the team at his peak, they just were allergic to missing the finals. Agreed. 15 finals, 16 finals, 17 finals, 18 finals, 19 finals. The only year that they didn't really make the finals was, I think he played 6 games one year, and that's when they had Eric Pascal and a lot of really bad guys.
I remember that, yeah.
Playing really bad basketball. And then the year after, 21 Steph, where they barely, they made the play-in, but he didn't have Clay, and then finals. But yeah, prime Steph making 5 finals in a row, that was one of the more absurd things that I've seen in a minute. So, and he's doing it while winning unanimous finals MVPs. Yeah, I got to put that guy at 2. He's just too tough not to.
I'm with you.
And I think rounding out the top 5 is actually rather easy. I guess it depends which order you want to go, right? Because I think the next 2 for me, KD and Giannis.
I like that. We're like I said, I think our lists are going to be similar. I've got KD ahead of Giannis, but like you said, with 2 and 3, I could flip them, and I'm still okay with that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm still okay with that. But I think that Kevin Durant at the peak of his powers, because we still talk about him now because of the efficiency, but at the peak of his powers, I literally felt like no one could guard him.
At the peak of his powers, he had burst and a lot of burst and athleticism.
Yeah, don't forget, KD was dunking on people's heads. He wasn't just a jump shooter.
And that's the thing with when it comes to these like older players, it's so funny because they're still so good that you don't realize how good they were in their prime. You look at him, it's like he's averaging 27. He still might be in his prime. It's not really until you go back and actually look at like 2014 KD, then you realize like, oh, he's not even close to his prime. Like This dude was moving different 10, 11 years ago.
Remember how quick he was? I mean, I've never seen a 7-footer handle the ball the way he did, cross people what he did, and blow by people and finish over the top of people with a dunk. Like, Kevin Durant was completely a different dude. It's amazing what he does now. It's amazing what LeBron does now. But what I've learned, Brett, is they were so great at the peak of their powers that even now, as they're descending, they're still better than most of the guys in the league.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's just kind of the thing with guys like KD and LeBron, right? Like, when you're descending from the penthouse, it's a little bit of a slower descent for you. So, like, their, down years, it's like, yeah, you're still a top 15 player in the league at worst.
Right. Suddenly, that bum is only top 12.
Right. Like, when I was, like, when looking at the players last year, it's like, well, okay, KD and LeBron, congratulations. You're still both all NBA second team somehow.
Right. So, yeah, I'm with you so far. So far, our lists are identical. I'm with you.
Now, see, and this is it, the 5 through 10, and I feel like the last spot's the most interchangeable, and even like these couple spots are very interchangeable, right? So, for example, say for number 6 and 7, I'll give you 2 names that I think belong here.
Okay.
Kawhi Leonard and Chris Paul.
So I want everybody in the chat to know, and everybody else listening to us right now, we do not share our list with each other. We never do. Now before the show in the green room, we had a conversation about our top 3, and they were similar, but we did not share our list. I have Kawhi Leonard right behind Giannis, and I have Chris Paul right behind Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah. That's that's kind of funny, Mo, how this works, because we'll have a lot of the same like opinions. Well, yeah, no, we don't share our list at all with each other. We just kind of go. It's just, to me, just almost just common sense, right? It's Kawhi Leonard. You're talking about a guy who is literally, he goes to Toronto. What is he? He leads them to the finals. He wins finals MVPs. He's the engine of that team. Completely drags. Now, let me make this clear. That Toronto team was just really freaking good in general. But Kawhi is the piece that, put him over the top. Like,
right.
They're a 50-50, 55 win team without him the next year. But, with Kawhi, they're winning the title. Like, that's the difference that Kawhi made. And even with the Clippers, we're talking about a guy who, it's unfortunate that he got hurt so early in that Suns series, because guess what? He played like 2 games injured. He was dropping like 30 pieces on, the Suns. And then they're like, yeah, he's hurt. He's injured. He can't do this anymore. But Kawhi Leonard at his peak is maybe the most insane, one of the more insane wings that you'll ever see.
I agree. Look, I remember him playing in that Utah series, and they were completely dominating the Jazz, and Joe Ingles bumps knees with him, and it's a bang bang play, but just like that, ACL gone. he's had the most unfortunate luck with injuries than any player I've known, especially when you look at the kind of star that he's been. But when he's whole, because this is what this whole thought process is about, everybody the best version of himself, there's no doubt Kawhi Leonard's a top 6 or 7 player in the league.
Say no, absolutely. And people make the joke CP 0 rings, but Chris Paul almost won an MVP over Kobe Bryant. Like, CP3 is just an absolutely absurd player, and he's just so well-rounded at everything. You need defense, Chris Paul was lead at that. You need somebody to run your offense, he's also a lead at that. And you know what's ironic? For being one of the smaller guards in the league, I thought he was actually a pretty good rebounder too. Like, there just wasn't anything on the basketball court that Chris Paul couldn't do besides, unfortunately, stay healthy in the playoffs. The best of ability is availability, and that's the one thing that eluded Chris Paul, and it's so unfortunate.
All I know about Chris Paul is wherever he goes, the team wins, right? He improves the culture of the team, and the team wins. He's a winner. He's just a natural winner. And I always point this out to people because we do this a lot when we have these conversations about all-time greats. If you're an all-time great player and you don't have a ring next to your name, you're still an all-time great player for me. That doesn't change. I think we nitpick because that's part of what we do when we're talking sports, where we start comparing iconic players with each other. You have to nitpick, right? But anybody that doesn't think that if Chris Paul right now today, if he could wake up tomorrow, Brett, and he was 24 years old and he was on the Clippers, we will be talking about the Clippers being a title contender with that version of Chris Paul leading the way because of what he can do on both ends of the floor and because of what type of leader he was. So it was an easy choice for me to have Chris Paul right behind Kawhi Leonard.
Oh, absolutely. And I think this next guy, he's lower on the list because of lack of playoff success, but there's no doubt he should be on the list. James Harden.
Again, our lists are in sync in a weird way for whatever reason. I've got Harden right behind Chris Paul. Peak of his powers, one of the most dominant, explosive scorers we've ever seen in the history of this NBA. And you can make an argument he had a better year than his MVP year and didn't win the MVP. I thought he had a shot to win a second MVP. Harden has done everything right in terms of being a dominant scorer, except, again, win a title. But when you look at what he's done, I think James Harden has been in the conference finals, I want to say 3 or 4 times. And I'm talking about outside of Oklahoma City. That's kind of impressive when you're the centerpiece of a team and you've been able to get to the conference finals that many times. He just hasn't been able to get over the hump. But that's a big hump when the hump is the Golden State Warriors most of the time.
Oh, absolutely. Say between them and, of course, they ran into the San Antonio. They couldn't get by. There's just a lot of tough teams. That block that Manu had on him was so great. I remember watching that live and going nuts. I love a good defensive play.
One of my favorite players all time.
Oh, absolutely. And then Mo, here's the last 2 spots. To me, are the hardest. So it almost feels like, and then there are like 4 different options, maybe 5. So let's throw out some older options. Anthony Davis, I think, has a real shot at this.
He does.
Russell Westbrook.
He does.
Luka Doncic.
And he's not even he's weird. It feels like he's an older option, but he's not even an older option. He and Shea are actually the same age. That's crazy.
Yeah, say Shea. And you know what? I'll throw Joel Embiid in there. He had a great peak. He was great at the peak of his powers.
No question. But I went with. I'll tell you right now, the 2 guys I went with Luka and I went with Shea.
You know what's funny? I actually completely agree with that. I think Anthony Davis is probably. Anthony Davis is so tough sometimes because he had his best years on the Pelicans, but they didn't win anything. But Anthony Davis was also just really good on the Pelicans. And I don't even know if I can per se blame the Pelicans him for not doing anything with the Pelicans, because Pelican team construction was just always so bad.
I agree.
Like, say their like best wing half the time those years was like Etwan Moore. They thought the best way to have a big play with him for a while is they gave like Omer Asik a 4-year contract for
I
who knows
remember
what.
that. Yeah.
Like, they just didn't know how to build the team, and it was the weirdest thing ever.
I think that was their mistake, right? They wanted to put a big with AD so he didn't have to play the 5 spot. And I would argue that he might not like it, but I think he's better at the 5.
If you look at his minutes recorded at each position, he spent the most of his minutes during the 2020 Lakers championship run at the 5. I think having 5s on the roster, you can play them most of the game and help reduce his wear and tear. But yeah, when it's time to, go out and win the game and put your best lineup out, you're going to put Anthony Davis at the 5.
Right.
Like, that's the only thing that really makes sense for him.
I thought long and hard about AD. I probably thought even longer and harder about Russ. It's weird that you can be so, I hope I say this right, statistically dominant. Maybe arguably the most statistically dominant, not even arguably, he is the most statistically dominant point guard we've ever had. And so if you're a numbers guy, you'd be screaming to the rooftop, Russ has got to be in your top 10 if they're all in their primes. I know the numbers are going to be there. But if we kill James Harden for not winning titles, if we kill Chris Paul for not winning titles, the what would keep Russell Westbrook out of my top 10 would be the fact that he puts up huge numbers, but he didn't win anything. Never mind making it into a conference finals. Like, when he's your best player, you don't get out the first round.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what makes Russ so. He has a unique skill set, but you can't really play a lot of other like ball dominant players with him. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. You need to construct an absolutely like perfect team that fits with Russ being like the primary and only ball handler. So he's just so hard to construct a team around. And yeah, say if we're gonna kill Harden and CP3, who obviously Chris Paul made it to a finals.
That's right, with the Suns, correct.
And then James Harden at least pushed the Warriors to the brink. It took an all-time ice-cold shooting performance from the entire team to knock themselves out. Like, yeah, it's just tough for me with Russ. So
isn't that weird? I love that you pointed out something that I don't know if everybody in the chat gets. I know Chumping at the bit. I know Kyle gets it, right? That if Chris Paul doesn't get hurt and they go into that game, if they even go to a 7, they knock the Warriors out. The Warriors were going to out and out lose that series, and there's no excuse. There's no injuries. KD was healthy, Clay, Steph, everybody was there, and the Rockets were digging in there, you know what. And then Chris Paul goes down, and it changes the series. If they win that series, they're going to the finals. It literally would change so much. So, yeah, it's weird that Chris Paul and James Harden are right next to each other because they came just shy of getting to where they wanted to as teammates.
Absolutely. And honestly, a hypothetical Rockets versus Cavs series, I would probably pick the Rockets. Say if their shooting doesn't completely fall apart, that was a really good basketball team with peak Harden and CP3. I'm not sure if the 2018 Cavs have enough firepower for that, no matter how good LeBron James was.
LeBron would have been pushed to his brink on that one. That would have been a tough matchup for him. He wasn't catching a break either way. He got Golden State, but had he gotten the Rockets, I'm with you, that would have been a tall task. That was a really good Rockets team. Chris Paul and LeBron at or Harden at their peak versus LeBron and Kevin Love, I'm favoring the Rockets.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Absolutely. So overall, just so you know what? It's funny that we just kind of fully agreed on the list so easily without even looking at each other's. That's pretty.
That's
terrific,
the crazy.
actually.
That's the crazy part. That's the crazy part, guys. This is why we do the N1 podcast. This is why we vibe. We don't agree on everything, but I think there's certain things that we kind of both take the common sense approach.
No, absolutely. Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry, I got distracted for a second. Sorry about that. Jordan Love looked like he was about to get killed there, but he threw it out of bounds. Okay, perfect. Who? Look, y'all know how it is. Thursday night football, your team's playing. Sometimes you get a little sidetracked. I'm looking forward to this upcoming season 2, Mo. I was thinking too, next week, well, maybe we start doing some fun tier lists about like tiering off each guard and forward and center.
I'm excited. I love that. Let's do it.
No, absolutely. So there you have it. That was our main event of the evening for you guys. So that's really all I had for you guys today. Anything you want to add before we get up on out of here, Mo?
No, I want to thank the chat, Damian, Kyle, everybody who's watching us from whatever platform you're watching us on. Thank you guys so much. Look, guys, this is where we normally do our double-double. So if my partner is going to be available, I will make sure to make myself available, and you guys will see us tomorrow morning on Coffee and Sports in the Morning. We hope you join us. Appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a great time. We'll be talking about the game, making some more NFL predictions. So make sure to check us out. In the meantime, we thank you for joining us, and we hope you guys enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you for tuning in to the And One podcast. If you like our content, you can find more on the Wire to Wire Podcast Network on YouTube, Facebook, and Spotify. Want more And One? Find it on Wire to Wire. Like and share our Facebook page and join the And One Discord. Grab the link to join from our Facebook. Thank you for tuning in and have a wonderful day.